Hello, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras. This is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist, and I'm also the father of two ADHD kids, and I'm married into an ADHD family. I have also been in private practice for decades and decades, and most of my clientele was ADHD, either treatment or evaluation. And I I must like this thing. I think my wife's ADHD too, although we're not sure yet. Uh, that was my audio engineer telling me that we are actually live with the microphone, which has sometimes been an issue. Okay, I'm going to do something you're not supposed to do, and that's I'm going to give you some information that will tell you roughly when I'm broadcasting this. Well, we are in the throes of NCAA Final Fours, and it was sort of interesting. Well, it was very interesting in that both games in this, which were played last night, the team that eventually ended up winning was behind in the second half. And the one I really want to focus on is Duke, because, well, first of all, I went to UNC Carolina, so I'm sort of big on ACC basketball. And but last night, the Houston Cougars were 14 points behind with 3 minutes to play and ended up winning the game. Now, how did they do that? The Duke team, well, it's the tallest in the NCAA, so they were way taller than the Cougars, who were playing a three-guard offense, and the tallest guard was, I think, 6'4", and they're just, and if you don't follow basketball, it doesn't really matter, but Cooper Flagg is the best college basketball player in the nation now, at least, and he's a freshman, and he's actually he should be a college or a high school senior, but he's that good. Point is, though, his team lost. Okay, why did they lose? Because they couldn't adjust and adapt as well as the Houston team. They got a little bit flustered, and the Houston team did not get at all flustered. They are behind by what should have been enough points that they would lose the game, and they ended up pulling it out. They gutted it out. They, dug deep and all that other stuff that people do. What's that got to do with your ADHD kid? Well, what the Houston team demonstrated was something that in psychology we call it resilience. And sometimes it's just digging down and being tough, facing adverse circumstances and not letting it throw you for a loop and just coming back and doing what you need to do. And, in their case, they eventually won the game by 3 points. And that was an amazing performance. It wasn't the one I expected, and it wasn't the one I really wanted, but it was, it was amazing to watch them just dig down and like they did and not let it phase them. They started doing everything right. So, okay. In life, there are, child raising, there are more fads in that, and, just, everybody's got to do this, teach him to get good grades. No, no, no. Teach him to be sensitive. Teach him, you know, and we have the whole thing with the whole helicopter parent thing. That's not really good for kids, but it's not good for the reason that they never learn to be resilient. Okay, resilient is the ability to handle it when things get tough, stay calm, and deal with whatever the adversity is, whatever's happened, whatever bad thing happened. Uh, it's absolutely essential for an ADHDer to have some training in this, because ADHDers are going to make mistakes. They're going to forget stuff. They're going to get into work late. They're going to forget what the instructions were that their boss or supervisor or whatever gave them. And they're going to have to figure out how to handle that. And that starts at home. That's for you, mom and dad. You've got to figure out how you're going to train them to be more resilient, to be able to handle things, to see when things don't go the way they expected, sometimes lovingly called failure, is, this is going to sound incredibly cliched, is an opportunity to learn. And that's the way they have to look at it. And that's the way you have to look at it. You say, okay, this didn't work out very well, right? And so, but what did we learn? What do we know? Because we didn't do as well as we could have in this situation. And that's, basically all of us have to be able to do that to some extent. If you can't do that, then the world is a big, frightening place for you. And that's probably not what you want to pass on to your kids. I mean, the simplest way to look at resilience is that it's being tough, being able to adapt and adjust, being, oh, this didn't work out the way I wanted to, so I'm going to go pick myself up and fix it, do better the next time. And it's, for some reason, it's not a real popular thing to be talking like this, to be talking about resilience and being tough and digging deep and all that other stuff. But it's actually kinder. An ADHD kid's going to make mistakes. There's no way around it. They are going to do stuff. And if they are, oh God, I can't make a mistake, they're going to have a rougher time. Let's just put it that way. Every time you get a little bit anxious, it makes your world a little bit smaller, because then you don't want to do that again. And then, eventually you're trapped in your room or your apartment or whatever, and not going out for anything because you're afraid of everything. So you're going to make mistakes. So we all do. I mean, none of us would have learned to walk if we couldn't handle making mistakes. And sometimes I wonder, with some of the parents I have seen in my office, it's like, I mean, you're on this kid all the time. He can't, you don't even like the way the sound he makes when he breathes. I mean, it's lighten up, back up a little bit. So what are the things you need to do to make life better for an ADHD child? What are the things you need to do? You need to teach them a lot of things, but you need to focus on optimism. On taking not a, oh, I'm a horrible person, or, oh, I'm terrible. Oh, why do I always screw up? Why you don't want that stuff. You want, okay, I made a mistake. What can I do so that next time I don't make the same mistake? It's because, a lot of adapting and adjusting to ADHD is just learning that you won't remember it if you just say you're going to remember it. Of course, that happens to most of us when we get to a certain age too. So you need to to have your memory book, or I used to call it an auxiliary hippocampus. It's just a little notebook, steno book, whatever you like. 3 by 5 cards work fine. Where you scribble down things that you don't plan on keeping forever, but that you just want to have as a reminder so you get whatever the job is done. Okay, it's so you have to learn to set realistic and meaningful goals, and that's one of the things you teach them. You teach them, no, you're not going to get that paper written in 1 hour tonight. It's 500 words. It's going to take you a little time. So first thing you're going to do is this. The second thing you're going to do is this. The third thing you're going to do this. Then you're going to spend a couple of days writing parts of this, and so on, breaking things down into smaller chunks, which are realistic, and you can actually get them done. And you make sure, well, I don't want to, one of the things you have to do is get a little more nuanced in the way you set up situations. It's not, I want you to go to school and get good grades. It's I want you to go to school. I want you to pay attention. I want you to have different techniques for making sure you pay attention. I want you to use them. And then I want you to do your homework like you're supposed to. And it'd be nice at the end if you get good grades, but you can't just say get good grades, because that's too big a goal. It's too abstract. They can't get a hold of it. You need to be a little more concrete, a little more specific. Okay, but you do, like I just mentioned, you have to develop problem-solving skills. You have to teach them how to problem solve. ADHDers tend to see goals as the end goal, and it's such a big thing, they hit high school, and the first thing they're thinking about is, what do I have to do to graduate? It's like, whoa, that's too big and too far in the future. Pay attention to what you need to do to get through the day, to get through the week, to get through the semester, that sort of thing. And you set meaningful goals. And most of it is breaking things down into doable pieces. I mean, I'm sure all of you have heard of the Pomodoro approach to things. And Pomodoro, depending on where you read it, sometimes it'll be just do 20 minutes, and sometimes it's like do 45. The deal is there's no magic number. You have to just, what's reasonable for this kid? Can he or she work for 10 minutes and then need a break, or can they work for a half hour and before they need to break? That sort of thing. And of course, eventually you're wanting to increase the intervals so that something reasonable like 45 minutes or so is not a bad goal. And that you want to get there, though. You don't assume that from the get-go they're going to be able to work on arithmetic problems for 45 minutes. That's not going to work very well. Okay, other things that are important to build resilience are, I'm sure you've heard of it if you've never used it, but gratitude exercises. Okay, practice gratitude. We're all of us trained to be critical, but most of us, most of the time, forget to be grateful for things. And so it's actually something you need to train yourself. You probably need to do it for yourself, not just for your child, but that what are 4 or 5 things that you're grateful for that you noticed today? And they don't have to be Oscar winners or anything. I had the best ham and cheese sandwich ever today, or the teacher said I did a good job. That really felt not good. Or, small things. I really liked the way my room looked this morning. Or I had a real easy time making the bed today. I'm not sure why it was different, but it was a lot easier than usual. Those kind of things. I mean, they don't have, like I said, they don't have to be Nobel Award winning. They just need to be little things you notice that, oh, I like this. This was pretty good. Okay. And so, yeah, also, we need some nurturing relationships, some relationships with people who are positive. And, I know in every school, there's this one teacher who does really well with all the ADHD kids. And oh, by the way, parents, in your 504 plan, you can specify that you want that teacher for your child. Okay, so get hooked into the school and find out who he or he is, and make sure your child gets some relationship with them. And then you're going to be needing to teach some problem solving skills. Okay, and problem solving is not magic. It's using logical skills to determine the cause of a situation and also determine what actions you can take to improve the situation, change it. And that's not something that, probably none of you folks out there have had any formal training in problem solving. Some of you, I'm sure, have, though. Some of you have had a lot of it. And a lot of like scientific method, if you're really good in biology lab or physics or chemistry, or that you have had some problem solving training. And the whole scientific research method is basically a problem solving methodology. And if you have some experience with that, your child needs to know how do you solve a problem. Well, first of all, how do you recognize a problem? Second of all, then how do you measure a problem? You know, I'm always late. Well, are you always late, or are you just late on Wednesday or whatever? Measure that. Actually, get used to writing things down so that you can look at them later and see, yeah, every Wednesday. What's special about Wednesday? Why am I always late for school that day, or why do I always am I always late for this class on this day? But it's important that you measure it, that you uh, know exactly what's going on with you, because when you're a kid, life is kind of trying to keep up. You're trying to learn the new stuff that you've got to learn to just survive, uh, and stuff keeps changing. Starting with your body. All of a sudden you're 5'10" and you used to be 4'9". Uh, all those kinds of things are things you have to adapt and adjust to, and it's a problem. And what do you need to do? You know, if you're all of a sudden added a foot of height, well, probably you're going to need some work with coordination and dexterity and all that sort of thing. And all kinds of ways you can do that. Uh, but you've got to approach it calmly and logically and as a problem to be solved. And the one of the other things you need to look at is learning how to manage emotions. Okay. Emotions are always a problem, uh, you know, especially if you have a hyperactive type ADHD, or you're probably going to have one of those kiddos who has outbursts, shall we say. But one of the things well, first of all, you have to believe it, and then you have to teach it to your child. Our emotions are not just the result of some neurotransmitters going bananas. Our emotions are a result of the way we think about things. Our emotions are about the way we evaluate a given situation. You know, if somebody says, "Hey, you," is it what? Are they wanting to pick on you? Are they trying to, or are they just don't have very good social skills? Or maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe everybody in this town says that. You've got to be able to think it through and evaluate it and get the logic of it, because I know I've used this before, but everybody's in charge of their own emotions, and most and people develop a favorite bad emotion, and there are a couple you really don't want them to develop. One is the whole anger button thing, where they go off and ready to fight or something, and that's not a good thing to teach your child or have your child teach himself or herself. So there's that issue. The other issue is a lot of times ADHDers tend to have really low self-esteem, and that's nothing but evaluating everything you do as wrong or not good enough and that sort of thing. And you really want to nip that in the bud. Uh, if you look at, you have different strengths. You're really good at this. You're not so good at this. You're really good at that. You're not so good at this. And that works for everybody. Everybody's got strengths and weaknesses, and you want to make sure that you have identified his or her strengths and massage the heck out of those, reinforce them like crazy. Do not join the club and dump on your kid. They have enough people doing that. Here it comes. 70 critical responses every day for an ADHD child. 70. So they don't need any help picking out what's wrong. They need help in coping with that and learning to accept it and not get down on themselves or angry. Those are the two main things you're worried about. Because, if your kiddo is angry, eventually sometime he or she, when they get hit around adolescence, they're going to yell back at somebody, and that's not going to be a good thing. Or they're going to get into a large fist fight, or, there are all sorts of bad things that can happen with anger people. And people who are, I always mess up, I always screw up, I'm so, those people are going to be depressed. And it's unnecessary. And it's, you have to treat your kid that he or she has control of their emotions, and they have to pick carefully. Doesn't mean they're always going to be happy. It doesn't work that way, but you just have a little bit of a downer maybe, and then you can bring it right back up. You have to teach that. And it's called cognitive behavior therapy in my profession, but it's just a matter of the way you think about stuff is the way you feel. Think everything's terrible and horrible and dangerous and all that stuff, you're going to be anxious. If you think everything you did, have ever done is screwed up, you're such a mess, you can't get anything right, you're going to be depressed. And if you think that these people are always picking on me, they're always yelling at me about stuff, then you're going to be angry. And you have control of that, but you have to learn how to use it. And there are certain techniques that you can use, which I think I better not go into that today, but maybe I'll go into it later on. It's called cognitive behavior therapy. There are all sorts of variations on it, but it is a very useful and practical and applied sort of approach to handling your emotions. And you don't have to be, particularly well trained in psychology to be able to apply the basic principles. I'll do that next week. We'll talk about that. Okay, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass. This has been Dr. G's ADHD Chat, the show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. My website is terrygingrassphd.com. And keep saying I'm going to change when I do the YouTube version of this show, but so far I haven't gotten around to doing it. And if any of you have any problems with me changing the day of publication of this, let me know, and I'll at least evaluate it. And we will catch you on the flip side. If you are interested in coaching, I do some of that. So yeah, there's a sign up on the website. And if you want to get on my list, there's a sign up on the website. We got a few bonuses and stuff for doing that. Okay, catch you on the flip side, and catch you next time.